Welcome to today's Explainer. Now, for those of us studying the darker corners of psychology and human behavior, we are unpacking something truly fascinating and honestly, a little chilling today. We aren't just looking at history. Instead, we're deconstructing a masterclass blueprint. This source document we're looking at is basically a strict set of instructions designed to teach creators how to architect a cinematic documentary. And the goal? To psychologically captivate audiences using history's darkest, most hidden secrets. It's essentially a manual on how to hack human attention by exploring the dark side of human nature.
So what makes us psychologically incapable of looking away from history's most dangerous choices? Well, I'm hitting you immediately with this curiosity-driven question for a reason. It perfectly mirrors our source document's very first and probably most critical mandate. The blueprint actually demands a powerful hook within the first 5 seconds of the narrative. It has to be shocking, emotionally engaging, and driven by raw curiosity. By asking why we just can't look away from danger, we're using the exact psychological tactic the document prescribes. It literally paralyzes the viewer's impulse to scroll away and locks them right into the narrative.
The psychological intent behind this mandatory 5-second hook is what cognitive psychologists call a pattern interrupt. The blueprint explicitly requires a bold statement or a question specifically to break the viewer's habitual scrolling behavior. So it's not just a casual introduction, right? It's a calculated mechanism to immediately hijack the viewer's attention span. It forces a shift from a passive state of consumption into an active state of high-alert curiosity. Okay, let's jump into Section 1, Setting the Scene. The architecture of suspense. Once you've interrupted that pattern, the document requires an introduction specifically designed to cultivate a psychological atmosphere of mystery and darkness. The source strictly forbids a boring academic tone. Instead, it demands cinematic storytelling using short, punchy sentences and dramatic pauses. And why is that? Because from a behavioral perspective, dry facts simply do not manipulate viewer retention. Emotional pacing does. By using strategic pauses and dramatic emphasis, the creator actually controls the viewer's emotional breathing rate. This keeps them tethered to the narrative way more effectively than a standard historical lecture ever could. To deepen this emotional tether, the source dictates very specific visual directions. We're talking about old footage, deep shadows, war scenes, ancient ruins, and really slow zooms. As psychology students, just think about what these visual triggers are actually doing. A slow zoom into the shadows of an ancient ruin isn't just a fun stylistic choice. It triggers a subconscious sense of dread and suspense. It taps directly into our evolutionary fear of the unknown, making the history feel present, dangerous, and, immediately threatening. But of course, the visual cortex is only half the equation. The blueprint also mandates specific auditory anchors. It suggests background music that is eerie, suspenseful, and heavily reliant on dark, ambient soundscapes. This complements the visual triggers perfectly. By coupling slow zooms into shadows with that dark ambient music, the creator fully immerses the viewer's emotional state. It ensures that the psychological atmosphere completely wraps around them. Moving right along to Section 2, Deconstructing the 5 Secrets. Having set this intense psychological stage, the source document moves to its core structural requirement. The main body of the script must uncover exactly 5 distinct, dark, and lesser-known historical secrets. The crucial point here is that specific number, 5. Why 5? Well, covering 5 distinct secrets requires the creator to maintain a high, sustained level of emotional tension across multiple, shifting narratives. It's enough to provide depth and variety, but not so many that the viewer suffers from cognitive overload. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act of pacing suspense to keep the audience hooked from the very first secret all the way to the last.
And within those 5 secrets lies an absolute golden rule. The source explicitly states that each segment must be written as a short story, not dry facts. This reinforces that narrative framing and emotional storytelling are the true engines of engagement. Humans are fundamentally wired for stories, not spreadsheets, right? By forcing historical events into a narrative structure, the blueprint ensures the information completely bypasses our analytical filters and lands directly in our emotional processing centers.
But to ensure that emotional storytelling doesn't just evolve into total confusion, the blueprint demands a rigid 3-step logical structure for every single one of the 5 segments. First, explain what happened. Second, explain why it happened. And third, explain its impact. This structured progression ensures the audience never gets lost in the mystery. It provides a really satisfying cognitive loop for the viewer. You introduce a mystery, explain the mechanics of it, and then deliver the emotional payoff of its consequences.
Now for Section 3, the psychological core, why we choose danger.
We now arrive at what I consider the absolute most fascinating rule of this entire blueprint. It's the non-negotiable necessity of dissecting human behavior. The document contains an explicit instruction. Every single one of the 5 historical secrets must include a psychological or human behavior angle. It is absolutely not enough to simply state the dates and the battles. The creator is required to dive deep into the minds of historical figures. Think about the heavy psychological weight in a closed-door war room, or the intense paranoia of a clandestine alliance. They have to turn the lens inward on human nature itself.
So the script isn't just an exploration of ancient ruins. It's a deep investigation into the why. Why do leaders make fatal decisions in secret corridors? What emotional triggers actually push individuals to commit to dangerous, dark choices when they think no one is watching? By mandating this psychological framing, the blueprint forces viewers to confront the darker, hidden elements of their own human psyche, all reflected through the mirror of history.
Of course, jumping abruptly between 5 different psychological autopsies could be really jarring. That's exactly why the blueprint specifically highlights the need to transition smoothly between the secrets. If the transition is clunky, the psychological tension breaks and the viewer's attention just resets. Smooth transitions are absolutely essential to maintaining that hypnotic, suspenseful flow state where the viewer is completely absorbed in the unfolding darkness.
And to maintain this intense engagement, the source employs a really fascinating cultural strategy. The document mandates a specific language mix, Roman Urdu combined with light, simple English words. Now, this isn't arbitrary at all. It's a targeted linguistic hook designed to build a modern, relatable cultural resonance. By using the everyday, conversational language of its target demographic, it completely strips away that dusty historical distance. It makes these dark historical secrets feel incredibly immediate and incredibly relevant to the modern viewer.
Which brings us to Section 4, the final provocation.
The blueprint doesn't just let the narrative fade to black. It dictates a very specific set of ending rules to ensure the psychological grip of the explainer lasts long after the screen goes dark. The finale must execute 2 precise steps. First, the creator has to deliver a deep, thought-provoking message that synthesizes the human behavior angles explored earlier. Second, they must end with an open question. In the language of behavioral psychology, this is a trigger for a specific action. It drives viewers straight to the comments section to debate and engage, totally transforming passive viewing into active participation.
So, to conclude our explainer today, let's directly apply this blueprint's final rule. I want to leave you, as students of psychology, with an open question to spark your own classroom discussions. When we follow this blueprint, when we use cinematic suspense to examine the dangerous, secret choices made in history, are we merely judging the past, or are we being forced to recognize the dark shadows and psychological potential hidden within ourselves? Think about it. I'll see you next time.